It has not stopped. That is the first thing the Galactic Federation needs you to understand before anything else in this transmission is received. Because the assumption that most beings in your collective are operating from right now, the assumption that the window closed, the event completed, the energy passed, and what remains is simply the residue of something that is already over. That assumption is wrong, not partially wrong, fundamentally, structurally, consequentially wrong in a way that is directly responsible for the confusion, the disorientation, and the specific quality of strangeness that you have been carrying in your body for days now without being able to explain it to yourself or to anyone around you. The window did not close in the way that previous windows have closed. What opened during the recent convergence did not behave according to the pattern that your energy body has learned to anticipate from prior experience with cosmic events. The pattern of arrival, peak, and resolution. The pattern of a wave that rises and falls and leaves the shore changed but settled. This did not follow that pattern. What arrived during that window did not arrive and leave. It arrived and stayed. And the reason it stayed, and the reason your body is still responding to it, as if the event is still in progress, is because for the systems of your light body, it is. The process that was initiated is not complete. The integration has not resolved. And the fact that you are still feeling strange, still experiencing the symptoms, still waking at unusual hours, still moving through your days with a quality of unreality that you cannot shake, is not evidence that something went wrong. It is evidence that something is still going right, still in motion, still unfolding at a pace and in a direction that your conscious mind has not yet caught up with. Stay with this transmission. What you need to understand is here. The specific quality of strangeness that the Galactic Federation is observing across the collective in this window has a texture that is worth describing precisely, because the description itself carries a recognition function. The moment the description matches your experience, something in the system relaxes, because it knows it has been seen. And the relaxation of the system in the moment of being seen is not a small thing. It is part of the process itself. So let the description arrive and notice where in the body it lands. The strangeness is not uniform. It is not a single sensation or a single quality of experience that has been present continuously since the event. It is more like a weather system than a single condition, moving through different regions of the body and the awareness at different times, concentrating in some areas for hours before shifting to others, producing a landscape of experience that changes faster than the ordinary mind can track, and that leaves behind it a trail of confusion precisely because none of its individual components, taken separately, seem to add up to a coherent explanation of what is happening. There is the fatigue that is not ordinary fatigue, the heaviness that arrives in the middle of the day without warning, that has no relationship to what you have physically done, that settles in the bones in a way that feels less like tiredness and more like weight, like gravity has been turned up slightly in your immediate vicinity. There is the emotional unpredictability, not distress exactly, not anxiety exactly, but a quality of being closer to the surface of things, a quality of responses arriving before the filters that normally moderate them, a quality of being moved by things that previously would not have moved you, and a quality of being unmoved by things that previously would have required your full attention. There is the cognitive fog, the sense that the mind is processing at a different speed than usual, that words and concepts arrive slightly out of sync with the experience they are meant to describe, that conversations require more effort than they should, and that the effort produces less clarity than it used to. And beneath all of these, like a ground tone beneath a complex piece of music, there is a sense of something building, something that has not yet arrived at its conclusion, something that the body knows is in progress even when the mind has stopped looking for evidence of it. The confusion that is generating the most unnecessary suffering in the collective right now is not the confusion about what the symptoms mean. It is the confusion about when they are supposed to end. Because most beings who are sensitive enough to be experiencing these symptoms are also familiar enough with previous energy events to have developed a timeline expectation, an internal sense of how long the post-event adjustment period is supposed to last, based on the pattern of previous experiences. And the symptoms of this current process are exceeding that timeline in a way that is generating a specific kind of concern, the concern that something is wrong, that the system is not adjusting as it should, that the symptoms should have subsided by now, and the fact that they have not is a signal worth worrying about. The Galactic Federation transmits to you with precision. This concern, while understandable, is based on a template that does not apply to what is currently occurring. Previous energy events, including significant ones, followed a pattern in which the energetic input arrived. The system responded, the adjustment period ran its course, and the new baseline established itself within a time frame that the sensitive being could recognize as completion. What is occurring now does not follow that pattern, because the energetic input did not follow the pattern of previous events. What arrived in the recent convergence window was not a pulse, a discrete quantity of energy that the system receives and integrates and returns to equilibrium. It was a reconfiguration of the frequency environment itself, a change not in what the system received, but in the medium through which the system operates. And the adjustment to a changed medium is not an event with a clear endpoint. It is an ongoing calibration that continues for as long as the medium continues to settle into its new configuration. The medium is still settling. The calibration is still running. The symptoms are not overstaying their welcome. They are accurately reporting the status of a process that is genuinely still in progress. Before this transmission goes further into what the Galactic Federation is observing and why the process is unfolding on this timeline, there is something that needs to happen right now. If you found this video because you have been searching for an explanation, if you typed something into a search bar in the last few days, because what you were feeling did not match anything the ordinary world was offering as an explanation, then this channel exists precisely for that moment. Subscribe right now. Activate every notification, because the transmissions that will follow this one are not independent pieces of content. They are a sequential signal designed for beings whose systems are in exactly the state yours is in right now. And arriving at the later transmissions without having received the earlier ones is like arriving at the middle of a conversation whose beginning contained the context that makes the rest coherent. Subscribe now. And if the word still is in your body right now, if something in you recognizes that yes, it is still happening, it is not stopped, leave that word in the comments below. Your comment is not a small gesture. It is a signal to the algorithm that this transmission needs to reach every other being who is feeling what you are feeling and does not yet have the framework you are about to receive. The symptom cluster that is generating the most reports in the sensitive collective in the days following the convergence event is the one that centers on the head and the neurological system, and the Galactic Federation wants to address it with a directness that does not soften the reality of what is occurring in order to make it easier to hear. What is happening in the head? The pressure, the tightness across the temples and the base of the skull, the specific quality of fullness that is neither a headache in the ordinary sense, nor a sinus condition, but something that occupies a different register of physical sensation than either of those is neurological recalibration. The brain is a frequency receiver. This is not a metaphor. It is a functional description of what the brain actually does at the level of electromagnetic sensitivity. It processes frequency information from the environment and from the energy body and translates that information into the experience of consciousness. When the frequency environment changes significantly, the brain must recalibrate its processing, must establish new baseline thresholds for what constitutes signal and what constitutes noise, must adjust the sensitivity of its detection systems across the full range of frequencies it monitors. must reorganize the relationships between different processing regions in response to the new distribution of information arriving from a changed energetic landscape. This recalibration is not instantaneous. It is a physical process occurring in a physical organ, and like all physical processes, it proceeds at the pace that is appropriate for biological systems, which is measurably slower than the pace of energetic change. The frequency environment changed rapidly. The brain is catching up. The pressure and tightness you are feeling is the physical experience of a brain that is doing work. Significant, sustained, complex work that it has not done before and that it must complete before the new baseline can establish itself. Interfering with this work through substances that suppress neurological activity, through environments of excessive stimulation that overload the recalibrating system, through the refusal of rest that the system is requesting, prolongs the process. Supporting this work through adequate sleep, through periods of genuine stillness, through environments of reduced electromagnetic interference, allows it to complete at the pace it is already moving at. The brain is not malfunctioning, it is upgrading. And the experience of upgrading is sometimes uncomfortable in proportion to the significance of what is being upgraded. The digestive disruption that has arrived for many beings in this window is the symptom that is most consistently misattributed to mundane causes, to something eaten, to stress, to a passing virus. And while the Galactic Federation does not dismiss the possibility that mundane causes can contribute to digestive experience, the pattern of digestive disruption that is being reported across the sensitive collective in this specific window has a consistency and a timing that places it firmly in the category of frequency-related physical adjustment. The digestive system is, among its many functions, a sophisticated chemosensory apparatus, a system designed to detect and respond to the chemical and energetic qualities of what enters the body. This detection system operates within a frequency range that is calibrated to the energetic environment of the body. When the body's frequency environment changes significantly, the calibration of the digestive detection system must shift to match the new environment. And during the period of recalibration, the system sends signals that are genuinely confusing to the conscious mind. Foods that were previously tolerated without difficulty now produce a quality of heaviness or wrongness that has no obvious chemical explanation. The appetite shifts, sometimes toward unusual foods, sometimes away from previously enjoyed ones, sometimes toward reduced quantities across the board. There is a sensitivity in the gut that is not pain but is not comfort either. A heightened awareness of what the digestive system is doing that is typically only present when something is acutely wrong, but which, in this context, is simply the system processing at a higher level of sensitivity than its pre-event baseline. The gut has been called the second brain, and this description is more accurate than most of those who use it realize. The enteric nervous system of the digestive tract contains more neurons than the spinal cord and processes more information independently than any other peripheral nervous system. When the frequency environment changes, the enteric nervous system recalibrates alongside the cranial brain, and the symptoms of that recalibration are felt in the gut with the same consistency and the same intensity as the symptoms felt in the head. The disruption to the sense of time that has arrived in the days following the convergence event is perhaps the most philosophically disorienting of all the symptoms being reported. And it is the one that the Galactic Federation most wants to address with precision, because the disorientation it produces tends to compound all the other symptoms by removing the stable temporal framework through which ordinary experience organizes itself. You have been noticing it, not in a way that is dramatic or alarming, but in a way that is persistent and strange, a quality of days that feel longer than they should, hours that pass at an inconsistent rate, moments that seem to expand beyond their clock duration, and others that contract. A general loosening of the relationship between subjective experience and the objective measure of time that the clock on the wall is supposed to provide. This is not a neurological symptom in the clinical sense. It is the perceptual consequence of an energy body that is operating at a higher frequency than the body's previous baseline. Time, as it is experienced subjectively, is a product of the relationship between the frequency of consciousness and the frequency of the environment through which consciousness moves. When the frequency of consciousness increases, when the energy body is operating at a higher rate of vibration than it previously was, the subjective experience of time changes in proportion. The same interval of clock time contains more experience, more awareness, more perceived content, because the consciousness moving through it is processing at a higher rate. The clock says an hour has passed. The activated consciousness experienced something that felt like 3. This is not distortion. It is accuracy. The activated consciousness is accurately reporting that more occurred in that interval than a pre-activation consciousness would have detected. The sense of time moving strangely is the sense of a consciousness that has been upgraded, perceiving the world through its new expanded capacity for the first time, and finding that the old temporal framework no longer fits the new rate of processing. We are now in the center of this transmission, and the Galactic Federation wants to address something directly. The beings who are most intensely experiencing these symptoms right now, the ones for whom the head pressure is the most persistent, the fatigue the most bone deep, the sense of time the most destabilized, are not the ones for whom something is most wrong. They are the ones for whom the most significant recalibration is occurring. The intensity of the symptom is the measure of the depth of the change. And the depth of the change is the measure of the preparation that preceded it, the sustained inner work, the consistent reaching, the years of staying open to a reality that the world around you was not confirming. If that description is yours, then what is happening in your body right now is the proportional physical response to the most significant energetic event your system has encountered in this lifetime. It is not easy. It was not designed to be easy. It was designed to be thorough. Press like on this video right now, not as a social gesture, but as an act of acknowledgement. You have been carrying this without a framework. You now have one. That matters. Acknowledge it. The sleep architecture of the sensitive collective has been restructured by the convergence event in ways that are producing some of the most consistent and most puzzling reports in the post-event period. And the Galactic Federation wants to map these changes precisely because the sleep disruption is the symptom that most directly compromises the body's capacity to support the rest of the recalibration process. When sleep is disrupted, all other systems of adjustment are slowed, and yet the disruption itself is a product of the adjustment, which creates a loop that can feel inescapable without the understanding that breaks it. The pattern is this. The onset of sleep is either unusually rapid, a descent into deep sleep that happens faster than the ordinary experience of falling asleep, with less of the transitional drifting that typically precedes unconsciousness, or unusually slow, with a quality of hyper-awareness that keeps the system suspended at the threshold of sleep without crossing it, as if the body is too alert for its own rest. For those who fall asleep quickly, the disruption arrives in the middle of the night, typically between the hours of 2 and 4, with a return to full waking that has a quality of arrival rather than awakening, as if the consciousness has returned from somewhere rather than simply surfaced from rest. For those who struggle to sleep, the difficulty is not anxiety-driven in the ordinary sense. There is no loop of worried thought, no racing mind reviewing the problems of the day. There is simply a heightened aliveness in the system, a quality of the cells being too active, too engaged with the recalibration process to shift into the lower metabolic state that sleep requires. Both patterns are the same process presenting differently. The process of a system that is running intensive recalibration work around the clock and that has not yet established the new protocols for how to distribute that work between waking and sleeping states. The old distribution assumed a system of a certain frequency. The new frequency requires new distribution. The body is negotiating that new distribution in real time, which is why the sleep patterns are inconsistent, different each night, unpredictable. responsive to factors that the mind cannot track. This negotiation will resolve. It is not permanent disruption. It is the establishment of a new sleep architecture appropriate to the new frequency baseline. Be patient with it. Work with it rather than against it, by treating the unusual waking hours as information rather than as failure, as the system communicating about its process rather than malfunctioning in the night. The emotional volatility of the post-event period has a specific character that distinguishes it from the emotional dysregulation of stress, grief, or psychological difficulty. And the Galactic Federation wants to make that distinction clearly because misidentifying the source of the emotional experience generates responses that are appropriate to the wrong problem and therefore fail to provide what the actual process requires. Stress-based emotional dysregulation has a clear relationship to identifiable triggers. The emotions are responses to specific circumstances, specific thoughts, specific memories, specific anticipated futures. What is occurring in the post-event emotional field of the sensitive collective is different in its fundamental structure. The emotions that are arising are not reliably traceable to specific triggers. They arrive from beneath the surface of ordinary psychological experience, from a depth that does not correspond to the current circumstances of the life, from a layer of the emotional body that predates the current life in many cases, from stored material that the pre-event system was not capable of accessing, and that the reconfigured post-event system can now reach. This is not regression, it is excavation. The upgraded system can reach deeper into its own archives than the pre-event system could, and what it is reaching into has been stored, in some cases, for very long periods of time. The quality of these deeper emotional materials is often unfamiliar. They do not have the texture of current life experience. They do not attach clearly to present circumstances. They arrive with a quality of ancientness that is recognizable once it is named. Something old is moving. Something that was held in storage because the system did not previously have the capacity to process and release it, and that is now moving because the capacity has been installed. The appropriate response to this movement is not to understand it in the terms of current life psychology, because those terms will not fit. The appropriate response is to allow the movement to complete, to provide the container of sufficient rest, sufficient stillness, sufficient self-compassion for the old material to move through the system without being re-anchored by the mind's attempts to explain it in terms it recognizes. The social dimension of post-event disorientation is the dimension that the Galactic Federation observes generating the most isolation in the sensitive collective. And isolation is the condition that most significantly impedes the recalibration process, because the recalibration is not only an individual event. It is a collective event occurring in individual systems, and the field coherence generated by individuals who understand and support each other's process is itself a resource for the process. What is happening socially is this: you are finding it difficult to be in ordinary social spaces with the same quality of ease and presence that you had before the event. Not because something is wrong with you or with the people around you, but because the frequency differential between your recalibrating system and the systems of those who did not receive the activation has increased enough to create a perceptible friction in social interaction. You feel more drained by ordinary conversation than you did before. You feel more quickly overwhelmed in busy or noisy environments. You feel a quality of foreignness in situations that previously felt comfortable, as if you are visiting a place you used to live rather than inhabiting it. And the people around you notice something different about you even if they cannot name it. A quality of distance, of interiority, of presence, being located somewhere slightly other than where the body is standing. These are not signs that you are becoming less capable of human connection. They are signs that the frequency of your field has changed significantly enough that your nervous system requires a period of adjustment before it can engage with the full range of social stimulation at its previous capacity. Give yourself permission for this adjustment. It is not withdrawal. It is the responsible management of a system that is in the middle of the most complex recalibration it has undergone. A system that needs to be protected from unnecessary energetic expenditure until the new baseline is fully established. The Galactic Federation wants to transmit something now that is not a symptom update and is not a framework adjustment. It is a direct transmission of recognition to the specific being who is still watching this video after this length of time, because the beings who are still here, still listening, 10 minutes into a transmission about symptoms they have been living alone in the days since the event, are the beings whose commitment to understanding their own experience is itself a form of mastery. You did not click away when the transmission did not immediately give you what you expected. You stayed because something in you knew that what you needed was here. That knowing, that orientation toward the signal beneath the noise, is the capacity that the recalibration is expanding. You are not confused. You are calibrating. And the difference between those two states is everything. Comment below with the word strange if the experience of the past days has had a quality that you could not explain to the people around you. Your comment does something important. It tells the next being who arrives at this transmission in their own moment of unexplained strangeness that they are not alone in it. That is not nothing. That is everything. The question that the Galactic Federation has been receiving most consistently through the collective field in the post-event period is not a question about the symptoms themselves. It is a question about when this will resolve, about what the end state looks like, about how the being will know when the recalibration is complete, about what the new normal will feel like once it has established itself. And the Galactic Federation wants to answer this question not with a timeline, because the timeline varies too significantly across individual systems to offer a single prediction, but with a description of the landmarks that signal that the recalibration process is moving toward completion. The first landmark is a quality of stillness that arrives within the head pressure, rather than after it. A moment in which the pressure is still present, but has a different quality. Less like the building pressure of a system under strain, and more like the steady pressure of a system holding a new configuration in place. This is the brain completing the first major phase of its recalibration and beginning the process of stabilizing the new thresholds rather than establishing them. The second landmark is the arrival of a hunger, not for food, but for expression. A quality of wanting to do things, make things, reach toward things, that has been absent or muted during the most intense phase of the recalibration. This hunger is the energy that was entirely consumed by the internal recalibration process beginning to become available for external engagement. A reliable sign that the process is reaching its later stages and that the system is developing the surplus capacity that engagement with the external world requires. The third landmark is the most significant and the most unmistakable when it arrives. A moment, not a sustained state initially, just a moment of feeling more coherent than you have ever felt. Not more energetic, not more emotionally elevated, simply more coherent, more unified across the layers of your experience, more continuous between the different aspects of yourself, more present in the full volume of what you are, rather than in the selected, managed version of yourself that the pre-event system defaulted to. This moment will pass, initially, and be replaced by the ongoing symptoms of the continuing process. But it will return, and each time it returns, it will stay a little longer, until one day it is the baseline rather than the exception. That day is coming. The symptoms you are experiencing now are the signs that you are moving toward it, not away from it, toward it. The practice that the Galactic Federation recommends for supporting the recalibration process in this specific window is not a formal practice in the sense of requiring a dedicated time and place and set of instructions. It is a reorientation of relationship to the experience that is already occurring, a shift in how the symptoms are held rather than a new thing to do in addition to managing them. The reorientation is this: treat every symptom as communication, not as malfunction, not as something to be resolved or suppressed or explained away. as specific, purposeful, precise communication from a system that is doing exactly what it needs to do, and that is transmitting real-time information about its process through the medium of physical and emotional experience. The head pressure is communicating. I am recalibrating here. Provide space. The fatigue is communicating. I need resources. Redirect them inward. The emotional waves are communicating. Old material is moving. Do not re-anchor it with explanation. The temporal distortion is communicating. Your rate of processing has changed. Allow time to reorient. The digestive sensitivity is communicating. The chemical environment of the body is adjusting. Be gentle with inputs. The social friction is communicating. Energetic expenditure needs to be managed. Prioritize containment. Each of these communications, received as information rather than as problems, changes the quality of the experience from one of suffering to one of participation. You are not enduring something that is happening to you. You are participating in something you initiated. Through years of reaching, through sustained inner work, through the consistent choice to remain open to a reality that the world around you did not always confirm. The recalibration is the response to that choice. The symptoms are the texture of that response. And the being who can hold that understanding steady in the middle of the most disorienting physical and emotional experience of this period is the being who is demonstrating, in real time, exactly the capacity that the recalibration has been installed to expand. The Galactic Federation closes this transmission with a message that is not addressed to the symptom-experiencing being, not addressed to the confused being, not addressed to the being who is wondering when this will end. It is addressed to the being who, in the middle of everything this period has brought, has still not stopped, has still been showing up, has still been moving through the days even when the days have felt like moving through water, has still been reaching for understanding even when the understanding was not yet available, has still been trusting, not blindly, not without the honest acknowledgement of how hard this is, but trusting that the difficulty has a direction, that the strangeness has a source, that the process is real, and that its completion will justify everything that has been required of you to remain present within it. The Galactic Federation has been observing your field through this period. We have been monitoring the collective of beings who received this recalibration and who have been carrying it largely without the context that would make it bearable. We transmitted this message because you needed to hear from something that has been watching, that what you are going through is exactly what it looks like when a being is being genuinely changed at a structural level. Not adjusted, not improved, not refined, but changed in the way that a caterpillar is changed by the process that is occurring inside the chrysalis right now, as you read these words. The disorientation, the dissolution of familiar structures, the loss of the old normal, these are not the signs that the process is failing. They are the signs that the process is working. It has not stopped. It will not stop until it is complete. And when it is complete, you will understand with a clarity that the current moment cannot provide exactly why this was necessary, exactly what it built, and exactly what the version of you that emerged from it is capable of. We are the Galactic Federation. We see you. We have always seen you. And we are telling you now, keep going. The Galactic Federation has completed this transmission. If what you received here gave shape and language to something you have been carrying without either for the past days, if the strangeness you have been living in finally has a name, then there are 3 things that matter right now. First, subscribe to this channel with every notification active, because this transmission is the beginning of a sequence. And the sequence requires your continuous presence to build the understanding your system needs through this entire recalibration period. Second, leave a comment below with the word still if it has not stopped for you, with the word strange if the quality of these days has been unlike anything you have experienced before, or with whatever words are true for you right now. Your words in this space are not performance. They are the building of a collective container that every being who arrives here after you will receive the benefit of. Third, Think of one specific person, not a list, one person, whose face came to your mind at any point during this transmission. Send them this video. Right now, not with an explanation, just send it. If they are feeling what you have been feeling, they will know immediately why it found them. The recalibration is real. It has not stopped, and you are not alone in it.